If hotels didn't want you eating their soaps, they shouldn't make them so damn tasty. And no matter what you hear in the coming weeks, it was self-defense. Major chess news lately, and very, very disturbingly sad chess news. So I think we'll leave that to the end. But we, it is deeply, deeply sad, and there's very, very few facts, and it's hard to distinguish what exactly the problem is. You've probably all heard by now that Grandmaster Daniel Naroditsky passed away, and we'll talk about that possibly on another podcast to give a proper tribute to him, because I think that's the only moral thing to do is give a proper tribute and to do it justice. And yeah, apart from that, major national domination continues in the United States chess scene. Fabiano Caruana has again claimed the US championship, making his fourth consecutive title, a feat not seen since Bobby Fischer. Clarissa Yip is similarly defended her US championship title for a third year in a row and a fourth overall. Yeah, I mean, the US championship was quite a feat to watch. I was again rooting for Hans Niemann because Hans, he was doing very, very well. He got some draws and a win with the black pieces, and then he did very, very well with back-to-back wins, and then unfortunately failed to get that, third win to, clinch the sole lead, leading to Fabi, unfortunately, just coming out just a little bit ahead, in my opinion. Not my opinion, in the overall rankings. There's a dramatic team championship outcome in Europe where Ukraine won gold in the open section while Poland clinched gold in the women's section. Particularly poignant, Igor Kolenlenko, a Ukrainian grandmaster and a serving soldier, he returned to high-level chess after a break and delivered an individual gold on board 4. I think that's quite a cool story. A lot of Ukrainian athletes, not just chess, are unfortunately tied into the national defense of Ukraine, and in the regions currently under invasion by Russia. The Indian chess scene is going through its usual shuffling of placings. Arjun Erigaisi has overtaken Prague to become India's number 1 and moved into the world number 4. In the US juniors, the US competed strongly in the 2025 World Youth Chess Championship in Albania, but no American made the podium. Sindarov grabbed his first title in the Blitz-style event, Bullet Brawl 2025. And here, it's just an example of how these faster time controls are gaining prominence in the chess world. There has been the combined chess championship is also going ahead. Earlier in the year, we covered the negotiation for the freestyle world, I think it was world championship, between Magnus's team and FIDE, and we covered the breakdowns and negotiations there. Similar negotiations, I'm sure, happened with the combined chess championship, which is why Magnus seems to be much more desperate to play in it, because there is it's a change in format that he has been It's a change in format that he's been advocating heavily for many, many years at this point, and is the main overarching reason why he did not defend his world championship. Okay, here's the Times of India has a good article that I will presently get open. But before we do that, I'd like to thank you all for listening so far. I would also like to apologize for John not being here. John's schedule is very, very hectic, and he finds it hard to get on the podcast, and for that I do apologize. Gukesh out of the top 10 in latest FIDE rankings. Arjun Erigaisi surpasses Praggnanandhaa to become Indian number 1. I do apologize for my pronunciation. Indian chess witnessed a landmark September as Arjun Erigaisi ascended to the world number 4 and Nihal Siran joined the elite 2700 club. Vishali, and now once my computer unfortunately has had a small hiccup here. So while the article reloads itself, I will again thank you for watching, and I would ask you to check out John MacArthur's Chessable profile and any of his books that he has co-authored. Okay, so Vishali rebounded from a 24-point loss in August by gaining 21 points, winning the Women's Grand Swiss and securing a spot in the women's candidates for the second consecutive year. Divya Deshmukh is also impressed, approaching 2,500 after competing in the Open Grand Swiss and defeating grandmasters. Among junior players, Pranav Venkatesh made headlines by gaining 45 rating points, propelled by the victories in the Grand Swiss. The Fujara Global Superstars, I believe that's how it's pronounced. Well, American Grandmaster Abhimanyu Mishra, I have mispronounced that name and I do apologize, maintained an unbeaten streak of 64 games, gaining 41 points and entering the World 100. Also, it is important to note that Hans Niemann had a great win against Mishra in a very, very classy way. He showed great in-game technique to come from what was essentially a very, very drawn position. And he did very, very well to scrape a win out of that. The 11-year-old Faustino Oro matched Pranav's gain, entering the top 50 after dominating the Legends and Prodigies event in Madrid. So we've got a lot of shuffling in the Indian chess scene, and it's very, very interesting to figure out who, in fact, is going to cast a difference between them and the rest of the other prodigies, because I actually seriously believe that is one of the blessings of our time, is that we're going to have an absolute wealth of world-class prodigies. Now, whether or not these prodigies can go the distance is the question, and who can be a different who can have zero weaknesses, and take a very Magnus-like domination over their peers. That'll be hard. So the chess.com article that I'm about to read gives the barest overview of the tragic passing of Daniel Naroditsky. And the thing that I personally love about Daniel Naroditsky, and I myself was not his biggest watcher on his YouTube for, one doesn't have all the time in the world, unfortunately. But the thing that I respected about Daniel Naroditsky, whereas other people respect other things, is that no matter what was going on, he seemed to be a somewhat classy individual. Back in the day, there was some controversies with Hikaru and stuff like that, and the level of class that Naroditsky handled such things with was very, very good. You could almost assume that if Naroditsky was on one side of a problem, that he was probably in the right. And that's my opinion, that he was a seriously reasonable individual, and very rarely provoked out of the ordinary. And so what I'm trying to say is that he was almost a moral clock. You could set your time by very, very, very reasonable beliefs on anything in the chess world. He was a very much one of the moral rocks of the chess commentary community. GM Daniel Naroditsky, the popular US grandmaster, commentator, creator, educator, and author, unexpectedly passed away on Sunday at the age of 29. The news has sent shockwaves around the chess community, which is grieving the loss of one of its most beloved and influential voices. The devastating news was first shared by Naroditsky's club, the Charlotte Chess Center, on Monday, and confirmed by chess.com with multiple sources. The Charlotte Chess Club's tweet goes as follows: "The Naroditsky family shares the sad news of Daniel's unexpected passing. Daniel was a talented chess player, educated, and beloved member of the chess community. We ask for privacy as the family grieves." And I think that's only reasonable. In fact, very few details, I believe, have come to light, and I believe that to be a reasonable thing. That if that's to change, that it only happens with time to reflect. The sad thing is about this, it's such a young person, such a very, very kind person. Another tribute from came from GM Petaleko, who also commented with Naroditsky on a number of broadcasts. I am in total shock and feeling completely empty. And there are many other people go down very similar roads in saying that he was an amazingly humble person with all the accolades that come from such a kind person. We're going to go down the article a little bit more here. Of course, they are honoring some of his best games, but I think it's more important to honor him as a person, to be honest. So many people have drawn conclusions that Daniel Naroditsky's death had some relation to Vladimir Kramnik's consistent and constant, essentially defaming and constantly accusing Naroditsky of cheating. And for the most part, Mr. Naroditsky seemed very much stick to the point that one should barely respond to such accusations. But when he did respond, as completely as is right, he did it with reasonable class, despite the overwhelming stupidity of the attack. And you could see that it had some effect on Danya, at least outwardly, in some of his last streams on Twitch. It was, one should not draw conclusions without things being confirmed. But I think even if the two things are unrelated, Kramnik has a lot to answer for. Now, there's some people online, including AKA Nemsko, best shown in this tweet that I will now read, have drawn the conclusion that Kramnik should be punished by having his many accolades in the history of FIDE somehow removed and his many accomplishments erased from the history books, essentially. And I don't think that's a good response to such things. I think it best to not diminish in any way the attacks that Vladimir has put against Naroditsky in the past. And I think erasing the history of the attacker would very much do that. And watching the clip, this is Nemo speaking, and watching the clip below of Danya's last stream and hearing the pain in his voice, how deeply the baseless accusations affected him. I am left so mad at what we all allowed to happen in front of us. It is time to stop worrying about the backlash. I'm calling on the FIDE EDC, which I'm assuming is the Ethics Council, to remove Vladimir Kramnik from the FIDE record books, revoke his title, and disqualify his world championship. Chess is one of the most beloved games in the world and should be a place for kindness and inclusion. It should be unilaterally unacceptable to use a platform that chess has given you, there should be a comma there, to bully, harass, and slander a colleague. What Kramnik has done to Neva Navarra, Hikaru, and Danya and others cannot be tolerated. It is up to our community and the governing body to set an example that this type of behavior will have consequences. Make it known loud and clear that chess stands against these hateful acts. If you do them intentionally and maliciously, there will be no place for you in our game. FIDE and its Ethics Council must establish clear policies moving forward around the safety of its players both in person and digitally. The events leading up to this tragedy happened in broad daylight over the last 18 months. They could have been stopped. Nothing like this can ever be allowed to happen again. And I agree with Nemo that they are horrible. They should have been stopped in some way. But I can almost guarantee that if Vladimir Kramnik is this devoid of, honest criticism, self-criticism, then I don't believe for a single second revoking his title, nor revoking his past world championship wins would do that. From what it seems, he is a very deeply entrenched and bitter man. But I was about to say that's okay, but it's not, really. So I do disagree with Nemo in the fact that we should not erase history in order to change the outlook on current events, because it's not really a moral slope, it's more of a moral cliff. There are many people that you could pin similar things on. For instance, any chess player who played chess in Germany from 19 something to 1945, you could probably take away their accolades too under similar reasoning. I mean, Bobby Fischer has said very nasty things of a similar caliber to about many different people, and I don't think it would be right to argue that his world championship would be removed and he'd be removed from the history books. One, I've got two reasons for believing this. For all the associated reasons, I don't believe we should remove history. There's many moral reasons why you should not do that. And then there is the practical reasons. I don't believe it would work. I think it would only deeply entrench, and I think it would peoples whose behavior is this despicable. I also believe that it would give them a legitimate. It would give people somewhat legitimate reasons for agreeing with them, because all Kramnik would have to say is the chess mafia are trying to silence me. And largely, I think Vladimir Kramnik is absolutely in the minority, in the vast minority. Now, it is important to note that just because someone is wrong, they are clearly wrong, and everyone believes they are clearly wrong. That does not mean that the accusations of a few people don't hurt. They clearly do. So I think there needs to be a more practical line drawn on helping people defend their innocence in a way that is less destructive to their mental health. But in the past, I have been somewhat dismissive of the effect that Kramnik has had. My opinion largely was he was a slightly less than harmless, essentially raving lunatic. And I myself did think of him more as an unhelpful sideshow in the world of chess. And if Danya's and Mr. Naroditsky's death is even slightly linked with it, I think that, I think it's slightly stupid. It was slightly stupid of me to underestimate just how terrible the actions of Vladimir Kramnik were. So it's with this that I say we will remember Danya's greatest moments with John MacArthur next episode. We will also go over any new information or as it comes out, and we will try and do this in the most respectful way that is humanly possible at such a terrible and sensitive time. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. It has not been an absolute pleasure talking about the death of someone so loved and respected. But I wish you have a great day, and may God keep you and bless you.